I'm Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hannah.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannahs,
where we like to talk about all your favorite horror new releases.
Yes, and today we are also joined by a special guest, Charles, aka TheReelVoice. Real, like punny, get it? R-E-E-L. So hi, nice to have you on the show.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
So why don't you pitch yourself to our audience? Where can they find you?
I'm on TikTok for now. Hopefully it doesn't get banned. You could also find me on Instagram and YouTube, all TheReelVoice, one word, R-E-E-L, like you said.
And what would be like the focus of your content?
I normally do horror movies and psychological thrillers.
Yes.
So
which is,
just like us, but over on TikTok.
Yes.
That's right.
Which is how I found you. You kept coming up on my timeline or whatever. It's my For You page. That's what it's called on TikTok. And I was like, okay, we share some similar opinions. This might be fun to have you on the show. So glad to finally get you on.
Ready to conquer chaos like a horror movie final girl? Whether you're running a business or managing a side hustle, Ringtree LLC is the ultimate tool for taming your business calls. With features like intelligent call routing, voicemail to email, and custom greetings, you can create a professional phone presence all through your smartphone. No extra hardware needed. You can also separate work and personal calls, and you can choose your area code anywhere in any city across the US and Canada. At just $24 a month, it's a killer deal. Sign up today at ringtree.io and simplify your business life so you can get back to enjoying the things you love, like horror movies.
How long ago did you start your TikTok?
I started my TikTok probably 2 years ago, but it wasn't for movie reviews. I was just some guy on the internet just talking about everything and telling stories. And for whatever reason, people actually cared. But I figured out pretty quick that talking about stories that happened in my life or whatever I was seeing would lose interest and I would run out of topics pretty quick. But I always loved movies, so I decided to go that route about a year ago.
Okay. Was it always horror or just like movies in general and then you kind of fell into that niche?
So I like movies in general, but I really like psychological thrillers and psychological horrors the most. Mm-hmm. And those are the films I watch the most. And I just feel there's a big community around that really love that type of film as well. So I really stick with that.
Okay. Yeah. Why do you feel like we fell into horror, Matt? I feel like we've never actually talked about that.
Oh, that's a good question. I think we kind of said, so Hannah and I will sometimes say we're movie people first, horror people second. And I think that horror has been very like underrepresented, at least when we talk about like awards or when people talk about movies with like artistic value. I think horror can kind of be left on the cutting room floor sometimes. And I think that we found it as a space that really does have a lot of artistic value, or can at least, not all of them do, that was kind of easy to talk about. And we could find a lot of like fun thematic analysis in horror, a lot of overlapping thematic analysis, but it just kind of felt like a unique genre for us. So does that put it right? And then I just liked horror because my mom got me into it when I was a kid.
You did a good job explaining that. I feel like that sums it up perfectly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I feel like horror is a really great way to kind of cover difficult topics or difficult emotions that other types of film don't always touch. So I think it's a really accessible way to show societal things that are kind of gross or kind of upsetting or disturbing, depressing.
And sometimes I just like to see people get cut up, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
well, Charles, do you have any specific favorite horror movies or like subgenres?
You said psychological thrillers.
I did hear that, yes.
Yeah, so psychological thrillers, things that have twists and mystery to them. I really like The Thing is one of the classics that I go to all the time. It's one of my favorite films. I also like some films that aren't even horror, like, say, The Prestige. Just that psychological twist. You're trying to figure out why these magicians are feuding, who's lying, and that. I don't know if you've seen it with Christopher Nolan directing.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So I go back and forth between horror and films in that genre.
Well, you picked The Thing, which is unfair because that is just one of the best movies ever made. And no, I'm a big fan of The Prestige, and you kind of are convincing me that maybe we should cover it for our show, even though we can call it horror adjacent, right? I'm always looking for something horror adjacent that's really good to cover.
I know we've been talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, and like it's horror enough maybe to cover it, but we also both just like love that movie.
Yeah.
So we're like, how can we slide that in?
Or something like Zodiac, which I put more in the psychological thriller, and I was like, I would love to dive into that.
Fun fact about The Thing, when it first came out, it was deemed a piece of crap by critics. They said it was a junk film, should have never been made. I mean, unbelievable. Now it's considered one of the best sci-fi horrors of all time.
That's so funny because it's also like considered Carpenter's best, right? Like at least among a lot of people.
Yeah, he was so depressed about it because he thought for sure people were going to deem it a masterpiece when it came out because of the effects and the storyline and just drawing in that story of like, you don't know who to trust. And you feel that throughout the entire film. And everyone was like, this is bullshit. And he was just like, what happened?
That's funny.
I actually saw one of the reviews when we actually covered The Thing. One of the reviews was that it was the quintessential moron movie of the 80s.
That's unbelievable.
Yep.
And it was nominated for a Razzie.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just, I'm sure it's fun. I'm glad Carpenter's still alive to now see like what people think of his films now. Like, that's pretty awesome. I mean, now he just smokes weed and plays video games. So like good for him there.
Good for him.
Like, he got to at least see the come around on that.
Yeah. Well, last icebreaker before we get into it. Obviously, today we are covering a 2025 new release, Presence. But did you have any particular favorite new releases from 2024?
I did. My favorite, there were a lot of good horror films that I watched in 2024, but one that always sticks out in my mind is Late Night with the Devil, which was divisive as well. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it.
I also really liked it. Matt didn't like it as much as me.
We have a divided household on that one. There are things I like about it. It's just I didn't think it stood out that much to me, and there's like problems I have with it. But people can go listen to that episode if they want to hear me complain about it.
Yeah, he does get into that, and I am able to look past any of the complaints Matt has because the vibes and David Dastmalchian are just so good.
Oh, I love David Dastmalchian. I mean, that's like what really carries that whole movie for me is just his performance.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Well, like I mentioned, today we are covering Presence. So, back of the box summary for Presence. A family moves into a suburban house and becomes convinced they're not alone.
That's easy enough.
Yeah, quick and easy.
And we'll keep this spoiler free for the first, half or whatever. But for our audience, we'll let you know when we're going to start spoiling.
Yup. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh, who you might know as the director of the Ocean's trilogy, Aaron Brockovich, Traffic, Magic Mike, Side Effects. He's literally won an Oscar for Best Director, so this is not some newbie filmmaker on the scene. This is a legend. Maybe not in horror, but...
I mean, if you make all three Ocean's movies, yeah, you're an outright legend in my mind. Because for real, I watched those movies within the past couple of months, all of them, masterpieces. Each one.
I love them too.
I stand by it. Masterpiece might be strong, but like you can watch that movie on repeat. Really all of them. So.
Yeah.
And it was written by David.
Nope. Or go. I don't know how to pronounce that.
I don't know either. I forgot
Cope?
to look it up. David Cope will say, sorry, sir, but he actually wrote Jurassic Park and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, aka like two of my favorite movies ever. So, again, we got some baddies up in here. I
didn't realize that. So he did like the adapted screenplay for Jurassic Park?
Yeah, and the sequel, which we can ignore, but...
That's so cool.
I'm not into the Lost World, but that's okay.
Hey, it's still like the second best Jurassic Park movie out of 6. So
6, yeah. Soon to be 7.
Yeah, we don't need this.
Wait, what's the 7th one about? Do we know?
I have no clue. I'm pretty sure they're going to drop a commercial during Super Bowl, if I had to guess.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Because I remember hearing something about it and it sounded interesting, but now it's like completely blank from my mind. Because it has nothing to do with the previous stories we've seen or the previous characters, I thought.
I think that's right.
So that's maybe
might
interesting.
be better.
That could be cool.
Because the World trilogy wasn't doing it for me.
Oh, it was bad. It was so bad.
I remember we saw the first one in theaters and I had such a recency bias
excited.
too. I was like, that was okay. That was pretty good. And then like as time went by, I was like, that was dog shit. Like
We were so excited that I literally, like, we shed a tear during the opening sequence, hearing the music. We're literally like shedding tears. And then by the end of the movie, we were like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
the music is iconic, and it's from my childhood. My dad took me to that movie when I was 9, so anytime I hear the Jurassic Park theme, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I was a child once.
I had glimmer in my eyes.
Yeah.
Well, some fun facts about the making of this movie. So, Steven Soderbergh, like we said, was the director. He didn't write the script, but it was his idea that he brought to our boy David. He said in an interview, and I quote, "It was prompted by the fact that we had a presence of some sort in the house. We were told where we bought the house and subsequent to moving in that the woman who owned it some time ago had died in the house. We were told by a neighbor that the woman who died in the house was killed by her daughter. The circumstances surrounding it were very murky, but everyone on the block was convinced that this was not a suicide as the police had described it, but that her daughter, who she was well known to have a contentious relationship with, had killed her. I found that fascinating. I was hopeful there might be some sort of experience to be had, but Jules, that's his wife, and I really didn't have anything more than, did you leave that light on? But we did have a house sitter, and one night she was watching television in the main parlor area, and through her peripheral vision, she sensed somebody in the hallway in the other end of the house. When she looked, she saw a woman crossing from the bathroom to the bedroom, and she instinctively said, 'Jules,' and then realized Jules wasn't there. Nobody was there. So she immediately called Jules and said, 'This just happened to me.' The name of the woman who died was Mimi. I began to wonder what it would be like to be Mimi and be in this house and feel like, what are these people doing in my house? And is there anything I can do about this?' So that was my jumping off point."
I like that story.
I know.
That's really, that's cool. I just assumed he watched the movie A Ghost Story.
No, I thought that was fun, and I figured I would just read his direct words because I always think that people's individual experiences with a potential haunting, if they believe in that, is really interesting. So I thought that was very fun. When it came to the actual filming, he operated a stabilized Sony camera the entire time while wearing slippers. And that he had a handheld camera so he could move around and it wasn't too heavy.
And it was him, you're saying?
It was him the entire
Okay.
time. So while there were scenes where it's just one person in the room, they said sometimes they did feel like they had a scene partner because he was the presence that they were interacting with.
No, that's really neat. Because obviously the camera is its own. The camera is its own character in any movie, but especially in this movie.
Yes.
So to have the complete creative force behind the movie to also be that character makes total sense. I think probably lends itself to some of the success this movie has.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The average film contains hundreds, if not thousands, of hard cuts, but this film only has 33. And he basically had a rule that individual scenes needed to be composed of single continuous takes, whether a scene takes place in just one room or whether they were tracked moving around the house. If it's not going to black in between scenes, it needed to be one continuous cut. And there's only one or two spots where they broke that rule.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is the first movie that I can think of that is doing a long take gimmick, but it's not a one long take, the whole movie. Mm-hmm. Or one specific scene with a long take. It's, 36 long takes combined. Mm-hmm. I think it works really well because it does really put us in the shoes of the presence where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Charles, what's your thought? Are you a fan of one takes? You think, or sorry, like one take type movies? Are they gimmicks? What did you think about it in this?
I think that if it's done in spots in a film, it can be very compelling. I think that, if it's done right, it's cool to see. But like, for instance, have you ever seen Soft and Quiet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's all in one take, and I absolutely hated it.
I just watched a little video essay on this movie. I remember telling Hannah about it. You hated the one take, or you hated the movie?
The movie was, the subject matter is rough. Apparently, I believe it's based on a true story. The way it's shot, it forces you to kind of follow these neo-Nazis around. And I understand why they did it that way, but it didn't feel right to me. It could have been done with the cuts, and the story could have been told better. And instead you just get these long, drawn out sequences where you're kind of like, all right, like, I feel like I'm a fly on the wall and I don't want to be.
Yeah, that almost sounds like that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
But like it is like it goes to a point where it's like it makes it hard to watch. And that's I watched a video kind of about this movie, and I have it on my list now because of it. And they had said something similar where it was like the way it made them feel was like nothing they had really seen before, and they kind of like appreciated what it was going for. But I totally forgot it was a fake oneer. That's interesting though. See, the way you're talking about it almost sells it to me, because I'm like, oh, something that's going to make me feel like complete dog shit watching. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's done well. Like, for instance, I did watch Mad S. Have you seen that?
No, that's another one I just saw someone talk about on like Blue Sky, but no, I haven't seen it.
Matt's behind.
So that's done in one shot, but it's really, I mean, there's probably like 3 cuts that have been edited so smoothly you can't tell. It's hard to pick up on, but it is one continuous shot the way it's filmed. It's sold that way, and that's fantastic. It's a zombie outbreak film.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard that was one of the best of last year that we didn't get around to seeing.
Okay.
It's on our list, but we have this thing where outside of the podcast, it's really hard to get Matt to watch a horror movie because we watch so many that he's like, but what about all of these other genres that we have not touched?
There are other things I need to. If I will burn myself out on horror movies, because we're going to watch, 52 in a year or more, and many of them in theaters. So it's like when it's not something we're going to cover, it needs to be something else for me. Something else that's going to make my brain happy.
I literally watched 9 horror movies in a row in the last, I want to say less than 2 weeks, like 12 days or something like that.
Were they good, or was it like kind of middle of the road?
So here's the thing: when you're trying to cover horror films or any films all the time, man, you get a lot of stinkers. You get a lot of shit.
I think that's what's hurting me with the horror movies is there is a lot of shit, or things that aren't even shit, but things that are just so middle of the road that they're like, you feel just like it's something. I can watch something bad and I wouldn't feel like I wasted my time, but when I watch a 5 out of 10. I just feel disappointed because it's like I'm not getting entertainment value out of anything.
Yeah, we just covered Last Voyage of the Demeter, and I think that was one of those where we were like, it's so average to mediocre that I just don't have enough good or enough bad to say about it that I feel like it was worth my time.
And it was 2 hours long, and I was just
it was too long for what it was.
Get through this. But I'd say, luckily, I didn't feel this way about Presence, so I am excited to talk about this.
Yeah, so we can get into that. Did you guys have any specific expectations going in, just based off seeing the trailers or whatever you knew about the movie?
So I stayed away from trailers.
Okay.
Just so it wouldn't ruin it for me. I just saw a couple of reviews saying it's from the point of view of a ghost and go in blind. And I went, okay. And I watched nothing on it and just went in blind.
So for me, kind of similar. I don't remember seeing too many trailers. I knew who the director was, and I knew Lucy Liu was in it, which was a selling point for me because I'm a fan of hers. I wish that she got to be in more movies, especially throughout her career. So definitely want to support her when she's in something. But other than that, I stayed completely away from, I think, anything really. I
mean, I had definitely seen trailers. I knew very much going in what the gimmick was, if we're gonna even call it a gimmick, you know, being from the point of view of a ghost. So I feel like the film met my expectations. So that's why I was like a little frazzled almost by seeing so many people being like, oh, this was so boring. Oh, this isn't what I thought. And I was like, oh, it's exactly what I thought.
Is this going to be an episode where I need to be mean to the haters?
Maybe.
Am I going to have to go on a rant later? I will.
When I asked people to rate this movie, I got such a wide range of scores that I will share later.
All I will say is if your complaint is it wasn't a horror movie, I'm going to tell you to grow up. But that's just me.
Well, I think, and I did comment that on someone who was like, it was good, but like for a family drama, but it wasn't a horror movie, so I don't know what to rate it. And I was like, well, genre is so subjective. Mm-hmm. And the horror genre specifically, like I think different people have a different definition of what should fall into that genre when it's really such a wide net. And I do think this is a horror movie. I mean, it's about fucking a haunted house, but yes, it is very different. It's not your standard haunted house horror movie. It's not jumpy. It's none of the usual tropes that we attribute to it.
It takes a horror genre premise or a horror genre vehicle to tell a story of a family drama, family relationships, and I really like it for that. I actually will say I found it not to be scary exactly, but I found it to have a lot of tense moments that I would feel in horror movies.
I thought it was really tense and uncomfortable.
And I mean, and like I said, it follows all of those premises. We've seen plenty of other actually scary horror movies that do the same thing, to tell a story of a family drama or tell a story beyond just being scary. So I just find the complaint a little corny. I don't know.
A lot of people are complaining because you don't see the ghost, right? You don't see gore. You don't see a creature creeping around a corner. None of that stuff. Like you said, no jump scares. So they're like, well, what's scary about it? And we won't get into the spoilers yet, but when you have a certain reveal about a character, I thought that was pretty damn scary.
I agree.
I thought that was very scary.
I thought it was so real life scary. Like, this is a thing, maybe not to that degree, but like, this is a thing that happens to people every day. Mm-hmm. And it obviously shouldn't, but it's real. I think a lot of people, when it comes to real life horrors like that, don't always attribute that as like a horror movie thing, or like it's not the kind of scary that they're looking for, which, I mean, fair, but it doesn't make it not horrifying. I have like a friend who I think would find this movie scarier than most that we covered, because it's like a real life experience that especially women are vulnerable to.
Yes. Yeah, so I think for me, it was scary, but so that's where we are for expectations. Do we want to do our little? Oh wait, we can't do 15-second. I'm stupid. I forgot.
Yep.
I'm all off topic, everyone. All right, sorry.
So we did kind of discuss that while not traditionally scary, there are definitely moments that are pretty horrifying or tense or uncomfortable. But just to cover our normal hide and scream count, we didn't have those. It wasn't a hide or screamy movie, to be clear. But let's get into, still spoiler free, what worked best for this film.
If you're coming to me on that, I think it really is the family dynamic and drama. And I thought that part was so well written, so real life. Right? I mean, I don't think it's spoilers to say, like, we're following a family that has a rift in them currently. It's for a lot of reasons. Mom kind of being what we're calling her, a boy mom, not as interested in her daughter. Also, maybe mom's breaking the law in some ways. And there's this like big rift between brother and sister, and it's kind of a looming presence over the family, right? It's like a looming trauma or ready to like explode volcano over this family, for lack of better words. And that kind of works with this ghost also following them around, because it's like the ghost is not the threat. It's everything else in their life is the threat currently. So like the way that they were able to write this drama, I thought was just fantastic.
Yeah, I think it is a great encapsulation of a family living day-to-day life. And I think to go along with that, I really did like the performances, and I felt like they were all very believable. I want to especially call out Chris Sullivan, who plays the dad of the family. I really bought into him as a loving, caring father. I found his character and his role to be very compelling, and every time he was on screen, I smiled, or I laughed, or I felt for him. I found him, I was really impressed with his performance for someone I did not know.
He was pretty perfect. What about you, Charles?
I would say that I agree on everything you guys said. And also, the daughter, I think it's played by Chloe Payne, is the daughter. She was that teen angst and, dealing with the trauma that she's dealing with was so believable. Mm-hmm. And because of the fact that the ghost was kind of hanging around her, it made sense because you started to feel compelled to be around her. You wanted to know what was going through her mind, what she was dealing with, and it was peeling back the layers as you were figuring out what happened and why she's suffering so much. And it was just really cool to see. I thought the performance was great. Yeah,
she was excellent. And like you said, extremely compelling, especially, again, for someone whose work I'm not familiar with.
So I was also wanted to say, something that works really well is the gimmick.
Yes.
I would say the camera, to the point where I'm watching this movie and all of a sudden I would forget that I'm watching from the perspective of the presence. And then it would do something and I would go, oh my God, I forgot. I'm a character, right? Like I'm in this movie again. I'm as the person like behind the camera basically. And I thought that was so impressive because you're so enthralled by this dynamic going on. And then it'll throw the whole dynamic of the scene on its head by being like, oh, this is not living, breathing, but it is a presence. It's something that has a mind of its own running around here as well.
Right.
And then that would, create a new feeling for me. And so having it be able to interact with the environment, I thought was just, it was really masterful, to be honest. Like when Steven Soderbergh chose to not move the camera, or when to move the camera, and when to have the presence affect the world, yes. I thought was very restrained. And that's what made it like work really, really well. So.
I was about to say that as well, because the presence isn't really messing with them too much, which again, I think people probably went in expecting more of. Like you said, It was more observing the family. So when it would move things around in the room, or whenever it went back and hid in the closet, that always made me really tense for some reason, because I was just constantly waiting for something to be given away about the closet, about why it liked this bedroom closet so much. There was one point where it breathed or made a noise. So someone
it blew
in the
on
room,
her face, right?
Oh, it blew in the face.
Yeah.
So they knew it was there. That was also so scary to me.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Because usually like it's scary to be put between the like ghost or the threat and the protagonist. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, it's like we are the perceived threat.
Yeah.
And it still was scary because you have it's like that your omnipresent like perspective, which it's like, what's happening, but the characters don't. So you get very scared for them. So it's impressive that he was able to, I still think, make it scary and tense. So.
Yeah, I think too, not knowing who the presence is for so much of the movie, I mean, spoiler, you find it out eventually, but not knowing who it is also makes the film tense to me, because I was constantly waiting for who it would interact with and in what way. Like if it was going to be aggressive towards any specific people in the house. And then I was trying to figure out why that was, to kind of start guessing who the presence might be and if it's someone we know.
And when you look back on what the presence did around the house, you realize like, oh, it interacted a certain way with certain characters for specific reasons. Once you realize what the presence is, you're like, of course the presence would be frustrated in this scene because of this.
Yeah, it all comes together so well. I feel like every
It really
detail of this movie is really deliberate, even the details that they don't actually answer or elaborate on.
Right.
It feels, it's funny because you do look at this and you feel like, it's probably going to be generic, like run of the mill. But I think when you have a director that is this talented behind the camera and you are able to have really good performances, but also this well-written family dynamic, it really felt like, the A plot, B plot, C plot, D plot all came together at the end in a perfect way. It felt like a Seinfeld episode, or a Curb episode, sorry, for all our younger viewers. That's the best way I can put it.
Is there anything in the film that did not work?
To be honest, I don't have any complaints. I mean, other than the fact, like, because it is a gimmick film, and I don't want to make that a negative, like, it does have limitations, but I think it finds a lot of strengths in those limitations. So, and I will also say the length was perfect. I loved it. This is an 80-minute like breeze, and that's all it needed to be. It didn't overstay its welcome. So for me, I don't think I have anything worth complaining about outside of spoilers.
My only complaint is that I think the big climax of the film is really, really quick. And I just wish we had a little more space to breathe within that scene.
Yeah. We can talk about that when we get to spoilers too.
Yes, I will definitely elaborate a bit more. But I did want to put that out there as probably my only real complaint.
Charles, any from you?
When I was watching the film, there were a couple of scenes that felt odd. And I followed a friend of mine, his name is Steven, or OTS Movies. And he points it out, and I went, yeah, that's what it was. And it's these straight-on single-shot scenes where, like the dinner scene where everyone's sitting on the same side of the table, basically, so you can see them all. And that's not how people would sit, a family would sit at dinner, ever. And I remember seeing that scene going, why does this look so weird right now? And I realized after he pointed it out, I'm like, oh, of course the brother and sister would be sitting across from each other, not next to each other. But I understand why he did it, because you can't cut from a rear shot talking over the shoulder and then a rear shot from the brother talking over the shoulder. It has to move side to side, and the camera has to rotate around the entire table. So to make that easier, it stayed in a single shot. And it does that a little long in a couple of scenes. But I mean, that's nitpicky, me just being weird stuff.
I noticed that too at the table specifically. I was like, okay, I know why you're doing this, but damn, you people don't say like that.
I must have been so locked in because I noticed it, but my brain filled in the gap and went, oh, well, these kids keep fighting a lot, so mom and dad are just making them sit next to each other and close. Like, literally, that's what I thought. And I don't know why. Again, I was hooked, I guess.
Your brother and sister start acting like it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
No, straight up. I think my brain literally was just like made sense of it. That's funny. I feel kind of dumb right now. And I usually would catch that, but I think I looked at it, I was like, that's funny that they're doing that. Like, it's like when you see those stupid videos where they like put two siblings in the same t-shirt. This is like that. This is our, just like dumb stuff. Like they need to, like when they're fighting, they like have this like weird t-shirt that they make them both wear together. That's what it felt like. So.
Well, before we get into the spoiler zone, would you recommend this movie to people?
Oh, definitely. I would even say go ahead and see it in theaters, especially like if you're not a theater person, like it's short, so you're not going to be, stressing about that part. I think it looked really good, and like, why not support your AMC or your local theater? So,
Charles?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have clients who ask. I tell them every time I go see a movie, I tell my clients I'm going to go see one, and they were like, "How was Presence?" I'm like, great. They're like, should we watch it or should we wait for streaming? I'm like, do not wait for streaming. Go to the theater. You need the big screen because it pulls you into the film. You feel like you're a ghost. When I made the review on the movie, I said, you are a ghost. When you go into this film, no, you're a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel like a ghost, a wandering, apparition. stuck in some home. That's, yeah.
Even the way, I will say, like, the way he kind of floats the camera. Like, it doesn't feel like a dude walking. It very much floats through the house. It's perfect.
Absolutely.
I agree. This is a yes for me. You should see this. And I agree. I would prioritize this as a theater viewing. So, we can move on for a word and go into spoiler territory.
Now we're entering the spoiler zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the spoiler zone. After this point, you're going to hear some things that you might not want to hear.
So we're good now to get into our 15-second summaries. So Charles, if you don't know what that is, basically Hannah and I do this little bit where we time ourselves and you have 15 seconds to explain the entire movie.
Okay.
And they are normally really messy and bad because we panic.
And sometimes we just make jokes.
Yeah.
So whatever you're feeling, we'll put you on we won't make you go first, but we will put you on the spot eventually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have to go first, Hannah?
I can go first.
Okay, Hannah's going to go first. Ready? Go.
We're moving through the perspective as the ghost tries to figure out why it hasn't moved on.
Easy enough. Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the ghost was the girl's brother the whole time, but he was stuck in time because ghost time works different than real person time. And the girl's boyfriend killed her friends and then tried to kill her. So the ghost brother saved her so the real brother could save her, and then he died, and that's how he became a ghost.
You went over by a second.
I was trying to be as nonsensical as possible.
Yeah, but you actually explained the movie. It wasn't that nonsensical.
All right. Cool. Well, Charles, we left you with whatever you can do off of that. So, Hannah, let them know when.
Just start going whenever you feel.
Okay. And The Presence is a beautiful family drama followed by a ghost. In the perspective of a ghost, go into the theater knowing you're a ghost, and you will be surprised at who the reveal is. I don't want to spoil it for you. There you go.
Okay. So, Matt, do you want to give us our full plot summary?
I'm going to read this whole thing, Charles, so as I tell the guests, feel free to zone out.
If you don't want to hear it.
This is for the viewers, so for everyone out there, we are spoiling this episode. We already did our spoiler zone thing, but here we go. So the Paynes, a family of four, mother Rebecca, father Chris, brother Tyler, and sister Chloe, move into a large suburban house inhabited by a ghost. The entire film is presented from the Presence point of view in a series of long takes. The Presence witnesses the growing cracks within the family. The parents' marriage is strained. Rebecca has been committing financial fraud at her work. Chris is considering leaving her. Rebecca obsesses over Tyler, an arrogant champion swimmer, while paying little attention to Chloe. Meanwhile, Chris is concerned for Chloe, who is grieving the death of her best friend Nadia, one of two girls in the community who recently died in their sleep. Tyler dismisses the dead girls as drug addicts. Chloe senses the presence, which often hides in her closet, and believes it's the spirit of Nadia. Chloe meets Tyler's friend Ryan. They get high and discuss loss and grief until Chloe breaks down, sobbing as Ryan consoles her. He tells her that she will decide when and where they have sex and discusses the psychological issues and obsession with control. The Presence makes a shelf in Chloe's closet collapse in order to stop them from becoming intimate. Another day, after Chloe and Ryan have sex, Ryan spikes a drink with the date rape drug, but the Presence knocks it over before Chloe can drink it. Meanwhile, Tyler and his friends prank a female classmate, soliciting an intimate photo of her and then circulating it on social media. Rebecca is indulgent, but Chris and Chloe are appalled. The Presence furiously trashes Tyler's room, revealing its existence to the rest of the family. Chris contacts the realtor, who insists no one died in the home, and she'd legally have to disclose that, but recommends her medium friend come by. The medium senses the Presence and notes that the vintage mirror built into the fireplace mantle that helps see into the spiritual plane. She realizes that Chloe can also sense it due to trauma, opening the metaphysical door. She adds that the Presence is in the house for a reason and suggests that the Presence could be trapped. Tyler and Rebecca dismiss the story as nonsense. The medium later returns and warns Chris that she believes the Presence is here to prevent a future event, something to do with the window that doesn't open. At Ryan's insistence, he and Chloe plan to spend the night together while her parents are away on a business trip, though Chloe warns Tyler will still be present. Once the parents leave, Ryan arrives and drugs Tyler with Ambien, leaving him asleep in the living room, while he brings another spiked drink to Chloe. She consumes the spiked drink, leaving her incapacitated. Ryan gloats that he killed Nadia and made it look like an overdose. He uses an ultra-thin plastic wrap to repeatedly cut off her air supply. The Presence frantically wakes up Tyler, who runs upstairs and tackles Ryan, throwing both through the window. The Presence looks out the window to the driveway below at the now dead Tyler and Ryan. The family moves out of the house. Before leaving, Rebecca senses the Presence and follows it to the mirror, where she sees Tyler's reflection and breaks down in grief. Having fulfilled his purpose, Tyler floats out above the house as the family leaves for the final time. And that's our movie. As longtime viewers know, I play professional ultimate frisbee. And in both frisbee and horror movies, strength and strategy are everything. Whether you're pushing yourself on the field or watching a survivor push through a terrifying ordeal, preparation is the secret weapon. That's why we're excited to bring you Alpha Progression, the strength training app designed to help you crush your fitness goals. Its personalized science-backed programs and easy-to-use interface have made it Apple's app of the day not once, but twice. It's like having a coach in your pocket ready to push you to the next level. And as a listener of Horror Hour with the Hannahs, you get 20% off with our exclusive code. Visit alphaprogression.com/horror hour and start building your ultimate strength today. Because whether it's on the field or in the final act of a horror flick, strength makes the difference.
At Horror Hour with the Hannahs, we know that some of the most heartwarming moments come from our pets. Definitely not haunted houses. That's why we're excited to partner with Forever Framed. They create custom photo magnets that beautifully capture the personality of our furry friends. Whether you're cozying up with your cat during a horror marathon or your dog is standing guard while you brave your favorite scary flick, Forever Framed ensures your pet's memory is front and center in your home. We are so excited to get one for our pup Norton and our cat Lily. Visit foreverframed.com, that's FUREVER, framed, FRAMED.com to get started on your personalized pet magnet today. Because even when the chills hit, your pet deserves to be remembered with warmth.
Yeah. And I am sad again.
You gonna make me cry again.
So yeah, we will say right away, Hannah cried at the end of this movie.
Yeah, it wasn't on my bingo card, but I did cry so I looked at Matt part of the way through, and I was like, I wonder if she's the ghost trying to save herself.
We did kind of think that.
But then I was like, when it was waking up her brother, I was like, oh, fuck. It's him. And so I like start crying, knowing it's going to be him. And then I continued being a little teary-eyed when they actually show him dead, because then it kind of confirms it's him. And then I was like, oh, I'll get my shit together. And then Mom sees him in the mirror, and then I cried again.
And yeah, Lucy Liu with a gut-wrenching, like, couple seconds of crying. That, like, was really, really impactful.
Oh, yeah. That was devastating.
So, I want to say, now that we're doing spoilers, something that was so impressive was, like, how everything did build up to this moment. And, like, there are plenty of things we can point out, but I want to point out one that was really stuck with me, and it was when Dad said to Tyler, like, one day, can you ever do anything, like, nice for your sister, basically? And then, like, knowing where it goes, it just, like, once again breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah, it wouldn't kill you to stand up for her one time.
Oh my God. I didn't realize it wouldn't kill you.
And then
holy shit.
Yeah. And then I know there's a really great man inside of you. I hope to see it someday with some iteration of what he said.
Dude, Dad was kind of spitting this whole movie.
Yeah, he spit bars. But yeah. It was so, like, putting it together, the lessons that this character had to learn to be at this point, and, like, the way he redeemed himself from being a piece of shit earlier in the movie. It just like, breaks your heart.
It just hits. And, like, it doesn't work unless you do all of this build up with the family drama before. Like, that's what really makes it impactful. And, like, that's what I'm, like, most impressed with this whole movie. Charles, we got any thoughts?
The movie was fantastic. I really love the tie-in with the brother. You see him, like, when he's in the closet. Well, you realize it's him in the closet, right? And he sees his sister about to be intimate with this guy, and he turns and looks away, and he won't even he won't even watch it. You realize later, like, oh God, there's all these hints that it's him. And, like, when he's telling the story to the mom about how they played the prank on the girl from school, and then he starts getting at his sister, and the ghost goes up, it's him, into his room and tears his whole room apart because he's so angry with himself for acting out. I mean, it was just like when it all, like you said, but you need all these little clues to build up. And when it gets to the end, you're just like, you're heartbroken for him. You know, like you said, he redeems himself, but you're just so heartbroken for him because that good man that he can be, he's only that good man for that flash of time and he's gone. And then he fulfills his purpose and he's gone.
You're going to make me cry talking about it.
Yeah. I agree, though, that the scene where he destroys his own room, looking back on, might be one of the most impactful moments of the film for me, because you know that that's him looking back at himself and wishing he were better and trying to tell himself to be better.
Yeah, it's like, don't be a dummy.
Yeah.
It's like, slapping him upside the head.
Don't be a bad person.
Like,
don't hurt women. Like, we're better than this.
Especially knowing that it was like Ryan. Oh, I guess he didn't know at that time. But for us, knowing that eventually it's like Ryan, it's like he doesn't want to be, he brought him into their life, right? He doesn't want to be like him. And like the route he was going was obviously maybe not serial killer, but like it was a mistreatment of women in the way that I think Ryan also did.
Yeah. Just a
Obviously,
different
Ryan
type
took
of
it, Ryan took it
mistreatment.
to a whole nother level, but
yeah, no one quite compares to Ryan.
Right. I also like how they hid a serial killer in the movie the entire time. And you know something's off with him. You're like, what is with this guy? Like, is he suicidal and he's trying to like get them to do a little death pact together? Because he's talking about, I know what your friend was going through and I've been there and you decide. I'm like, decide what? What is this guy talking about? This is getting really strange. And when you realize that he's trying to drug her, at first, when I first saw the first instance where he tried to drug her, I was like, why is he trying to drug her if he just had sex with her? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm like looking, going, what the fuck is going on? And then when he drugged the brother, I was like, oh my God, he's going to try to kill this girl. And it just hit me. I'm like, oh my God, what kind of person is this guy? And like you said, the brother brought him into their lives because it was such a big deal that the popular kid wanted to be his friend. Like he said it at the dinner table. Do you know how big of a deal that is? And it's like, oh my God, like it pisses you off when you think about it.
And I'll say somehow I kind of guessed. I was like, oh my God, this kid killed the other girls. Like, right. I think it was after he drugged her.
Yeah.
And then, so now I'm just like waiting, like just horrified. And then, Tyler's ghost breaks the drink and you're like, all right, hell yeah. Like she's good. And then you just kind of know that there's only one way this movie can go. And it's just not. And that's, I think, again, where the tension in the horror comes from is like this kid coming over trying to enact this plan. And that kid was scary. He almost was, his acting was like almost too good to the point where I was like, I don't know if I could buy this. Like it's almost too real. Like
it was really uncomfortable, especially I think being a woman and knowing I have friends who have been through things that they shouldn't have with men, and certain men have been easily able to manipulate women that I know, women that I don't know, by being the quote nice guy.
Oh, and he was disgustingly manipulative throughout this, fake crying,
Incredibly
and then you start thinking the whole time he's just been manipulating, and it's like, but that's what I'm saying. He's like so despicable that it like almost takes me out of it because I was like, could a kid like this really exist? But clearly, yeah. They do.
Well, yeah, he's a sociopath. That's why he's mirroring all her emotions and everything. He wasn't really feeling any of those things. He was just mirroring her.
It's icky. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Never, what I say, the takeaway from this movie is never trust a blonde white boy.
You can't say that.
Well,
but it's true.
I saw there was such a funny Letterboxd review that said that, and then like boy mom's kind of dangerous or something like that.
Yeah.
Or boy mom's kind of evil, and I was like, well, by the end of the movie you feel for her.
Except like she's still a bitch.
Oh, for sure. But like
yeah,
I don't know. What are you supposed to say? Like you feel for her, and then some
obviously you can have empathy.
There are a lot of imperfect parents out there.
Yeah.
More than there are probably perfect parents, so
right. And the mom is kind of a narcissist, right? She's living vicariously through her son. She wants him to be perfect and everything is for him. And the daughter's just kind of... And you know what, though? Tyler does stick up for her for a second, though, for his sister. Because the mom says it's all for you. And he says, well, what about Chloe? Right? What about Chloe? And so he's kind of like, hey, I know you love me, but you have to love my sister too, right? And the mom was like, oh yeah, well of course, but it's different. And then, by the way, I just realized I messed up the actress's name when I called her Chloe Payne. That's the character. Her name is, I think, Kalina something. I'm so sorry. I think it's Kalina Liang.
Yeah.
Liang. Yep. Yeah, Hannah found it.
So yeah, my apologies to that wonderful actress. She was great.
You don't have to worry about it. We're so bad pronouncing names
names
sometimes. And we do the exact same thing. We're like, so sorry to this person. They're really talented. We're bad people because we couldn't figure it out.
Well, and half the time I will look up how to pronounce a name and then I go to say it and all of that knowledge has left my brain already.
You know how long it took me to figure out how to pronounce Denis Villeneuve? I was calling him like Dennis Villeneuve for so long.
Oh, Dennis.
His name.
Well, all right. Sorry. So where were we? Do we have to get...
How bad the movie is?
Yeah.
I think it's also really interesting the philosophical questions that this movie asks when it's talking about how this ghost doesn't know who they are, but they also don't know what time they're in. They don't know what their past, present, and future is. And I think that is a really interesting train of thought. Like, what does happen when we die? Is time linear now? Is time linear when we die? What is time when you're not here on this plane anymore?
I love this version too, where that you're basically, once you have died, you're no longer bound by the constraints of time. Obviously, he has like other constraints. It's very similar to A Ghost Story, which is a movie I really love. Similar, but a lot of big differences, where that one I think doesn't have the family drama. You really are just with the ghost the whole time. But it's kind of the same idea that time doesn't exist after that. And I think that sets up what it really does is helps us have a really compelling and good twist. But philosophically, it's just like, it is scary. Like, what does happen? Or are we stuck? And like, how much effect do we have?
You want to know something really creepy?
Sure.
We're all gonna find out soon enough.
Good point. I'm not sure I'm a ghost believer. I might be a big believer in, it wasn't that bad before I was born. Can't be that bad after I die, That's how my brain goes with it a lot. But
I will say, unfortunately, in life, I can be kind of a grudge holder. So I do worry that I could, get stuck behind holding one of my grudges.
Well,
being a bitch somewhere.
If it works like this, you'll have plenty of time and plenty of non-linear time.
I think I'm going to work on it.
Work on
I think I'm going to work on.
maybe work
I'm
on
going to work
so
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'd like to move on. I'd like to not be stuck.
What if it means you get to save somebody though?
Well, obviously that's a different situation. If I got to save people, I got to save people. If that's my destiny, fine.
How many movies have a thing where a ghost actually gets to be like the hero? Because it's not often. Like horror movies, ghosts are always like bad guys in a lot of things, and it's really kind of a breath of fresh air in this one to like have them be a little scary, but also ultimately.
Oh, I got one. I got one.
What is it?
Ghost, Patrick Swayze.
There you go. Easy enough. Or Casper.
Yeah.
But I guess none of them are billed as like horror. Those are all billed as like romantic drama, or Casper's a kid's movie.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot where it's more of like a romance than a directly horror movie. So maybe, it works a little bit.
Poltergeist has some where there's like good spirits and bad spirits.
I was going to say, I think some of Mike Flanagan's, like the haunting shows, they have both spirits that are bad and trying to harm them. And
then spirits that are trying to protect. I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah.
A little afterlife battle. That just works well for me. Well, are we good to maybe talk some themes here?
Yeah, I think we should.
Get into what this movie's trying to do?
Yeah.
Well, you can start us off, Hannah, with, hit us with those family themes.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's basically a family drama, like we said, but I think it's really trying to show the impact of trauma on a family through the lens of a presence. And I think it's interesting, again, like we said, knowing that the presence is a member of the family.
And therefore also like a manifestation of the trauma.
Yes.
But go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Yes, 100%. And it really shows the perspective of the trauma with the people living in it, but then also the perspective of the person post-trauma and how it's continuing to impact them and their, quote, relationships with the people around them. Even though, obviously, in this, we don't know that it's him. But it very clearly is impacting his relationships and how he's interacting with his family or not. And I do think it really asks, like, what are we willing to do for the people we care about?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of that where dad is like, obviously, this is your sister. Like, it wouldn't kill you to stand up for her one time. Or there's the mom who's literally breaking the law. She says for her children, but for the other child, she doesn't want to intervene or do anything at all. And he is obviously puts himself in harm's way, in danger to save his sister's life. I think there's very much different elements of that in the film.
I know you said it before, but this has got to be one of the greatest on-screen dads.
I love him
ever.
so much.
I'm just thinking about other things he said throughout and the ways that he's trying to protect both of his children and like teach them lessons. And so I was going to also say this movie feels in some ways maybe a call to action to the audience to not be like stagnant in your growth and to like protect your family, protect your loved ones.
Yes.
Because like you don't want to have to be doing it after you die.
Yes.
You know, in this situation.
But also don't break the law to do it, because then you risk
for sure.
splitting up your family.
Yeah, good point.
That whole
Well, she's selfish. I don't see her as actually trying. She does it for herself.
100%.
More than
And
anything.
it's hard because we also don't know what she did, but obviously that doesn't matter to the entire storyline. I think it's just kind of showing that she is selfish and that she does have a different level of care for her two children, and the effort that she's willing to put into protecting her family does really differ.
Yeah. Charles, you got any themes you want to hit us with?
I think the theme that stuck out to me the most was not being someone who just stands by in inaction. When you see something is wrong, you have to do something now, because the reality is more than likely you won't get a chance to change anything. What is going to happen is going to happen. You don't get to be a spirit that comes back and save your sister. Stand up for them now so that you can prevent something horrible happening in the future.
Damn, you got me ready to run through a wall with that one.
It's very anti-bystander effect.
I love, no, that was really well said.
Yeah, I feel like you said that in a much more concise way than we were able to, when that is, I think, at the crux of part of what we were trying to say.
And you know, that fits also with mom of like, dad is saying like, you need to fix this financial mistake now. And she's like, no, it's fine. It's like, that's going to come and bite her in the ass at some point, probably after this film.
And he's also like, you should be there for your daughter. There might be a point where you can't. And there is almost a point where she can't.
In the end, though, the daughter is there for her mother. You know, after she sees Tyler in the mirror and she breaks down. And by the way, when Lucy Liu lets out that cry, I mean, that you would have thought she was in real anguish, because it sounded almost like an animal's cry. It was so painful. And her daughter was right there to love her and be there for her, despite the fact that the mother kind of was like, she'll be all right.
I haven't heard a cry that good since Toni Collette and Hereditary.
I was going to say, I knew you were going to compare it to Hereditary.
Just gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it really was. I was glad they gave her that moment, too, because I felt like she didn't get as much to work with throughout the movie, besides just being like a bitch the whole time. So when she got to have that moment, I was like, yes, queen, get it.
Yeah. But, you know, she played that part perfectly, because she's supposed to be kind of just like almost methodical, and just in a way, she's kind of a bystander in her own family, you know, or at least to her daughter. And that's the strange thing, is that this presence is watching the character Chloe, and the mother's also watching the character Chloe. And one doesn't want to do anything, and the presence does want to do something, but they're both watching her, which was very interesting.
I'm just here for the Lucy Liu resurgence, or renaissance, if you will. Get her out of movies like Red One and into more cool stuff like this.
Oh my God.
I didn't even see Red One. I'm not giving it the time of day.
I refuse.
No.
Just such a...
If I want Lucy Liu, I'll just go back and watch Kill Bill.
Yeah.
I love her in that movie.
Same.
I don't know who doesn't. That's probably why I know her. That's like her big
Yes.
early claim to fame. And
That's
like,
definitely why you know her.
but she's so good. And I'm like, come on, like she needs to have more of a career. And I want to see her more. I guess she was in Charlie's Angels too, but I never saw that. I got one more. Well, I think we hit on themes of like violence against women as well. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
I don't think we need to expand upon that. I think that's very clear that bad.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit on one of the more meta themes, and we'll see if I find myself along the way. But I think it's one that I like from a filmmaking perspective is just about voyeurism, which I've talked about a lot, and how filmmaking is like inherently voyeuristic, and then also the audience being its own character in the film, or the camera really being its own character. I think it, and why I'm saying it's kind of more meta is it's just a reminder of like what the camera really can do, like outside of movies where it is playing a presence. Like a director really can insert a completely different feeling and a completely different character as via the audience and via their camera placement. And I think this is just such a cool reminder of it and kind of cool commentary on that in some ways. And then it's easy to touch on the voyeurism element because that's what movies are, right? It's watching other people. There is, I think Rear Window did it early on and kind of made the claim that, you know, by watching movies, we all are interested in watching other people in good or bad ways. And that's like even more on display in this one, especially like when you talked about him hiding in the closet and needing to like shield his eyes from the intimate act on screen.
Right.
Like it just, I think it drives all of that home and really brings us back to just what film is. And I think that's really cool. And that's all I really can say about it. I can't really get too much more into it. It's not anything I haven't said before, but thoughts?
Well said.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. That I didn't even think about that, but it is, you are kind of forced to be in voyeurism, right? And the thing is, when you saw the two having sex, you want to turn away, and the ghost does it for you. You're like, okay, that's better.
Yeah.
You're right, because you're just so fouled out by Ryan in general.
Yes, right. You're like, I don't.
And you're like, girl, get away from him. He's gross. And yeah, you're right. It's almost like the camera responds to you. That's so cool because we are Ryan in this situation. Really, throughout the whole movie, we're saying
not Ryan.
Ryan. Excuse me,
Tyler.
Tyler. We're like, fucking do something. Stop being a piece of shit, mom. Like, care about your children. And you're like, Dad. Thumbs up, you're doing pretty good. Like, you really are Tyler. You are Ghost Tyler. Like, just magic of film. I love movies that take swings. This takes a swing and I think really nails it, which is impressive because I don't think this was an easy thing to nail. So shout out Steve.
Yeah, I feel like he, in a lot of his films, gets very experimental or takes risks. And I think for the most part for him, they pay off. They certainly paid off for me in this movie. I thought this whole movie ties in so well, and I think the gimmick is incredibly important to what the film is trying to do, as we've just discussed. So I can't see this story being told without it. Well, I think we can start wrapping up our conversation tonight by going into our ratings.
Favorite scenes.
Yep.
You forgot. Ahead. Hannah forgets favorite scenes.
I always forget that one.
Oh, this one's really hard.
My favorite scene was Ghost Tyler destroying alive Tyler's room.
Okay.
Mostly because I think the way the film wraps up, it gives that scene a lot more value. I also liked it in the context of the film because I also wanted to do that to Tyler's belongings. And I felt it was really validating for Chloe because they had been talking about how the ghost isn't there or she's imagining it or like they don't necessarily believe her. And after that happens, they do believe her. So I feel like that scene adds a lot to the film in a lot of different ways.
Oh, I think I'm trying to remember. It was one of the scenes where Ghost was seeing Dad interact with Chloe and came in and basically comforted her. And there was a couple of them, but it was one in her bedroom that I really enjoyed. And I think it was just, I really thought the dynamic between the two of them was just like out of this world. So,
for me, it's going to sound a little, for people who have seen the film, it's going to sound a little cliche, but the ending, not necessarily after while Lucy Liu is crying, but right after when the ghost watches the family come together and they're comforting each other, and it's kind of like, okay, my job here is done. That it goes out the door and lifts off into the sky, and you think, and it's corny, but you're like, oh, at least he's going somewhere better, it seems. And that just put a little knot in my throat. And but I love the way that was shot.
And then the lights came up in the theater to see Charles shedding tears, trying to cover them up quickly before anyone can notice.
I gotta be honest, man. I stood up and got the hell out of there. I'm not joking. I was like, let me get the hell out of here.
Like, too many feels.
I stayed
to the bathroom.
I stayed for too long because I was like, I'm crying. I don't want to get up. I need a moment to recover.
You know what? This one did not make me cry, but I did cry at another movie this week, and it was The Wild Robot. So
A very different movie.
I haven't seen it, but I heard it's so good.
It was so good.
It's good. There were like multiple times that both of us were like, I was like, don't look at me. Like, I'm crying in the corner by myself. I don't want to be perceived right now.
It was a rough week for us.
Before we get to ratings, I want to ask you one more question. Charles, what would you say to the people who are complaining about this movie, if anything? How do you get them to enjoy it?
I would say that they need to understand that the movie has elements of horror, but this is a movie about, it's a character study. It's a movie about redemption. It's a movie about forgiveness. This is a beautiful story about a family who is struggling to make it in life, and make it together. And it just happens to be through the eyes of a ghost. And appreciate that the way that it's shot, because in this, you are the character. You are the ghost.
I love it. Nailed it. You're my kind of horror fan.
Okay. Well, we're going to move into ratings now. We did throw out the question to some of our followers on a couple different social media sites. If you've seen the movie, what did you rate it? So just piecing out a couple from some of them, I got a very wide variety. On Blue Sky, Terrified State gave it a 3 out of 10. Yeah.
I don't think you've seen enough bad movies to give this a 3 out of 10. But don't make me be. I can't actually be mean to followers you're calling out. You know what? No, I can.
Maybe don't, though.
Okay.
Patricia Clark gave it a 7 out of 10. She said, definitely not a horror movie, in quotes, or even particularly scary, but as a family dynamic story. 7 out of 10.
Scares are subjective, Patricia.
Yes, but agree with the family dynamic story.
Yes.
Being at the heart of this, like we've said. On TikTok, our buddy Jojo Joel 4 gave it an 8 out of 10. And I was like, hell yeah, Buster. The first good rating I have seen. And then we had another follower give it a 5.5 out of 10. And someone else gave it he said, whole comment was 1 out of 5.
Wow.
Brutal.
Like, dog, a 2 out of 10.
See, this is, I don't want to be mean to horror fans, but this is when I say that I find myself to be a film fan first, horror fan second. And I wish more horror fans would go that route. Mm-hmm. I love some slop and I love some goofy horror. Sometimes I like comedy horror. I like everything, but sometimes you get a piece that really moves you like this, and to be unwilling to let your guard down for 80 minutes to let something like this affect you is, I don't know. That's what maybe you got some growing up to do, is the way I'd put it before. I apologize, but I don't know. It's okay if you don't like it. I'm fine with that. But the whole I wanted horror and that's not what I got, I feel like is a lame excuse for not letting yourself just be in the moment.
I think a lot of people too, when they rate, kind of forget about more than the story. I think people are like, the story wasn't for me. It's a 1 out of 5.
They go all narrative.
Fine that you didn't like the narrative, but there's so much more to a film as a piece of art. So for me, earlier in the month, we covered something that I was hating, but the stuff that was good was really fucking good. So I gave it a 5 out of 10, as much as I kind of hated the movie, because there's more to it than the narrative.
If you care about plot so much, read a book. This is a picture show, all right? We got lights, we got sound. It's more to it.
Well, let's move into our ratings.
Yep. Straight to me, I gave this a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. We're calling it an 8 out of 10.
I also give it an 8 out of 10.
Whoa. We're so aligned today. Charles, how we feeling? What do we think?
I also had it at a 4 out of 5.
Hell
go.
yeah. A consensus.
So it means go see it. 8 out of 10 is a good rating. I always feel bad when I say so many nice things about this, and then I go, yeah, so 8 out of 10. It's a B. But like that, sometimes that's just what it is, and that doesn't mean it's not really good. And you like,
I think for a movie or a book, a 4 out of 5 is real good.
yeah.
Like, I think that means you recommend it. I think that
Yes,
means
for sure,
people should go see it.
No, I've seen people give ratings and they're like, "Oh, it's very solid. It's a very good film." I give it a 3.25, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I don't know if you follow Dan from Real Takes. He does it all the time. 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty good. I would definitely recommend it. I'm like, damn, it's not even a 4.
There is the 3.5 is the hardest review to give because there are so many good movies I've seen that are 3.5, and there are also so many movies I've seen that I don't really like that much that are 3.5. Like there's something about the 3.5 can be wildly different ratings. It's funny. That's what the heart's for in Letterboxd. There's a 3.5 and a 3.5 of the heart.
I just can't. I need a weird range of decimals a lot of times.
Yeah.
I've been trying to stray from that because it's so arbitrary even to me. But sometimes I just need to be like, it's a 9.2. But no, this is an 8. I feel good about an 8.
Yeah.
I would recommend it. And I think that's where we leave it today. Charles, why don't you tell folks where to find you one more time?
You can find me on TikTok, TheReelVoice, REEL, like a movie reel. And you can also find me on YouTube and Instagram. Same name, except I think you have to put like a period at the end or something like that because someone else had it because I'm not as unique as I thought I was.
Well, everyone go give Charles a follow everywhere, especially if you liked what he had to say today. But we appreciate you joining us though, Charles. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you.
Of course, we hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to you about this. You definitely made me see some things. I thought I saw a lot, and you made me see things that I wasn't even thinking about. So
yeah, I feel like you articulated some of the thoughts we had and were word vomiting. You articulated it.
He's
very
a TikTok guy. He's got to be short
quick.
form. Yeah, Hannah and I are podcast people. We just have to ramble for an hour. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody give him a follow. Throw some likes his way. While you're at it, you should also give us a follow if you haven't. Make
5
sure
stars.
to rate us 5
Like, subscribe.
stars, like, subscribe, all that shit. And thanks for joining. More new release reviews to come.
I definitely need that 5 stars after I was mean to Blue Sky people because they will come and rate us low. That's happened once before. So if you haven't already, please.
Maybe you should stop shit talking people, man.
I can't. Just not in me.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
I don't either.
Not strong enough.
I guess that's why we work. We're both bitches.
Well, okay. We're good here, right?
Yeah.
I'm Matt Hannah.
I'm about to cry again. It's so cute.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannahs. Thank you for listening. We are done.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannahs. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you can find podcasts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannahs on TikTok and Instagram for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!